when you talked about the changing the dynamic with the students, it seems like it's more of a instead of seeing the tree or the product, it's like instead of seeing the tree, you're now able to see where the tree is in the forest.
Yeah.
And they can sort of see their pathway, like, okay, I've just got to go around this tree or over this tree or get this tree done, and then find my way through that way.
I like your metaphor much better, John. I was using a road this morning when I was thinking about this, but John's is much better. You know, when you're going through it with your students, as you know, they're going to go off on tracks and things that are interesting to them, and it's going to tangent. This helps you stay on track with where you're going. So.
Do you share any version of your course mind map with your students at any process to give them a sense of where you're headed? And how
I don't. I've debated on that. I can see I'm on the verge of doing that. I can see the benefit of letting them see, you know, how a course is mapped out and whatnot. The downside is I tend to change my courses based on my formative assessment all the time. So I find that when I show students like that, something like that, and then I change, they're, hey, wait, we weren't supposed to be on this topic, and it just drums up. So I'm on the fence still, but it's a great idea.
Any other questions? How many of you have already been using mind maps? Okay, keep your hands up if you have a favorite mind map software that you love. And I'm going to call on you. What is it?
So we actually use concept maps, so we use CMap.
CMap.
Which is a free online tool.
Free online and not on our list. Thank you. There are, as Nick said, hundreds of them.
Right, so we've also most currently been using CMap. We've used Inspiration in the past.
CMap. Inspiration I've heard of.
Inspiration.
It allows you to share maps with each other. So in groups of students, for example.
The collaborative. Can it go offline as well?
Can it go off?
So it's not just an online thing, but it also has, if it is online, you can share it, but if it's offline, it's not.
It's downloadable.
You can have it personal. Yeah.
And so privacy is there. All right. Who else had one?
I use the brain.
You use the brain.
Yeah, which is not free. It's kind of expensive.
It is expensive, yeah.
It's like $100, right?
Powerful. Pardon me?
100 and
100.
200 something, yeah.
It's like my binders, though. I mean, it has everything, all my articles, all my references. I'm an anatomist, so I just have it all sorted by region of the body and then sub-sorted by each class that I teach. And super powerful.
Do you find is it pretty intuitive to use?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very intuitive. And I just drag and drop everything in there, and it's been a lifesaver.
And then how is curious, because I'm interested in too, is support pretty good when if you ever had to use their support?
Yeah, I've had.
Okay.
It's really responsive within, half a day.
Oh, that's nice.
what was your gateway mind mapping software before you had?
It was the free version of the brain, actually.
Okay,
Now
so there
it's
is a free
maybe
version.
3
Yeah.
or 4 years ago. Yeah, I've used it a lot.
I have a question.
Yes.
You mentioned about brain and binder. In the D2L software, there is also a binder. I never used it before. Have you?
Nope.
Okay. I
So in
never
Desire
used
to Learn,
binder
there is
in
a-
D2L. Huh?
In Desire to Learn?
Yeah. So I'm not sure the binder is the, you mentioned binder that tricked my thought.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that.
And
Who else?
also the this software you mentioned, you get together with students. It remind me of I'm doing the visual flow charts, and sometimes I use the software, and sometimes we use the sticky notes on the physical board.
Yeah.
Do you do similar things like
Yeah.
transfer the physical board drawing into the software?
I still use the board. I still do the sticky note method, but that I typically do for the initial meeting.
Okay.
And what we'll do is we'll do a brainstorming to where they're working in a quiet space by themselves, and then we put it up on the board. But I have that one student that introduced me to this. She's so good at the mind mapping that she's right on the spot putting it into a mind map as we build the board. And then from that point forward, we don't go back to it because we're all in the mind map. But I do use that method still initially.
Who else had a favorite? Margie?
I use Peplet.
Poplet? Also for you, right?
Yep. I just wanted to mention with Kaplan for inspiration, that software is great for students who have a hard time organizing their thoughts as well, because if they work better in a mind map, you can also press a button and it outlines it for them as well.
For writing like
Yeah, for
organizing
writing,
thoughts of papers and
that's
such.
it.
Does a pretty good job of that.
And I will say a lot of these softwares come with templates too. So you could download a mind map already kind of, and you can just, fixed for you and you just fill in and that's a great way to start into it too.
And Blair, you had one?
Yeah, I used to use Glyphy a lot because it was embedded within the wiki and you could just add that.
Mhm.
And so, since I'm not using the wiki so much and I use the Google Docs, I just use Google Draw, which is really, it's not as sophisticated as some of the other tools, but it is in my workflow, in my Google Suite, and that's why I use it.
Yeah. And that was one of the ones that we listed here, I thought, maybe not. But yeah, we also have a couple of Google Doc add-ons. So Lucid Chart is one that is free as a Google Docs add-on. MindMeister is free as a Google Docs add-on, but to actually use MindMeister, you've got to subscribe to that. And so in organizing the activity for today, it was really difficult because we're not really focusing necessarily on Scapple. We didn't want everybody to have to buy a $15 thing. And there are so many different ways to get started, and people have different preferences. So we thought we'd just focus on sort of the idea of mind maps and let you figure out whatever software you wanted to start off with, and maybe even try a couple of different ones so that you could find one that works for your style of working. So you can get the free trial on Scapple if you'd like, but you don't have to. We've got a lot of other options online. But what we do have is just a couple of ideas of how to use mind maps for those of you who haven't done it before. And this was one of the ones that I really liked. Make 3 mind maps, and here they have ways to organize animals. So they've got a bunch of animals: the aardvark, the cat, the lemur, marmoset, bear, dolphin, elephant, gibbon, horse, ibex, jaguar, kangaroo. And you can do it as, what are the big ones? What are the small ones? Which ones are horse-like, and which ones are other, monkey-like, or cat-like? And then you can just sort of different ways to start thinking about things. The last one was which ones are scary, and which ones are not scary, and which ones are maybe scary. And figuring out, all right, so a kangaroo is maybe scary, I suppose, because it's got the vaccine or the feet or something, I don't know. So one of the activities, a sort of very easy one, is to just come up and you can use software that you download right now to try it out. We've got a couple of whiteboards here. If you wanted to just sort of try it out there. That's one. The next thing is, with whatever software you use, just find some images and replace the dolphin, aardvark with a picture of a dolphin, of an aardvark. So that'd be a great one to start off with. And what I want you guys to do right now is make something. All right? Use the sheet and do it, because remember, the important part is hands-on. So you must make a mind map before you leave today. Otherwise, we're ineffective. And you can use there's space on the back of this too if you want to just draw up here. How do you think, Diana? Yes. What's that?
Do you have any more of the handouts?
Do we have more handouts? I have one right here that we can use.
Here's one.
I got one.
And if you have questions, as always, raise your hand, and Margaret or myself or Nick can come talk to you.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
One side, called Mind Map.
Yes?
So you can figure out if they're.
If you are trying to blend your curriculum or classroom, and you'll be working with a consultant or just thinking through how to do that, when you mind map and those little lines, they actually represent links. that you might need to put in a hypertext environment, in a digital environment. It's a great way to organize your digital space as well.
I'd like you to figure out how to do backwards design on a mind map and show me.
So if you've already done this a lot, and you're like, I don't want to make a mind map about dolphins or words.
No.
Let me give you this one. Figure out, start with learning objectives. What is the evidence, or the learning objectives here? This is what we did for this class. Then what are the evaluations? And what are the activities for that? I don't think this is a very good representation of backwards design, but it's the best one that I could come up with. So, smart people in a room, I put the challenge to you to help me come up with a better way to mind map backwards design, starting with what are the learning objectives, what evidence am I going to use or is acceptable, and finally what activities. That's the best one I could come up with, but I'm sure there's a better way of doing that. If you can do that, post an image of it to our Teach Talk Google Plus community at bit.ly/teachmat. And I'm looking forward to seeing them.
When I've tried, I have a hard time thinking globally.
And again, were you able to download one? Did you find a way you like?
Because it's really about bringing the concepts up and seeing how they fit together.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my biggest problem. And I, especially if I'm doing something I already know something about, because you tend to keep thinking the same things over and over and over again. But it's one of those things you have to work in.
Well, and what's nice about this thing here, this is out in there, seeing disparate things that you've done.
That does, yeah.
They're just like so linear and static. This feels like maybe sometimes they can move around and like rethink how they all connect versus this like this week. 1, 2, 3, this week. 1, 2, 3.
On the table.
You know, it's just I don't know, just different.
So, have you seen any more progress on that?
I mean, what was the program I was trying to course you have right now is basically so I don't know the courses
Yes.
So
They have updated, they've made some updates to it already, and there are more that are promised in the next week.
Okay.
So I just talked to David about it, and he's like, yeah, this stuff should be done with the password protected thing.
Yeah.
It's like, that should be done in the next week.
Because I was out at the Arboretum last night. I'm, right now, for my one on Wednesday, I'm just using Google Maps because it's easy and people can. But I want to take it another step further. And yesterday, when I found out, I'm trying to figure out the variety of trees on campus. Grounds can't tell you because the maps are all outdated.
I just ran across a city map, map of all the trees that are on the boulevards and terraces and such, that, I would send that to you. Yeah, because they want to take the next step is map out the ones in backyards and such as well, but can't do.
So I got a little, and I'm trying to figure out the Scapple trees and come up with some way to get this done. And which is what I'm doing.
Hey George, do you know if there might be a problem uploading it to the iPad?
So it's just, and I was there yesterday. She said it would be really interesting to compare what the city was. That's all.
What a monopoly
Can't
there.
get them all.
Okay. Well, thank you.
But you can do.
I guess I can try to do it on my phone. I can do it on my iPhone.
Minneapolis has done it because they can go back.
It'll only work on a Mac.
And I don't have a Mac.
And they can also document.
Which is a free online
That's
version.
free as well.
Also has an iPad version of software, which I think is free
Our
too.
department needs to find a way to do something.
Big.
And I think the nice thing about Handouts is that you can.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, yes.
But they can also share
Yeah.
with other students.
I want to be able
So
to
you can have, like you're thinking about trying to do the next semester.
So that's why I'm giving. So which one is this?
It's the linear automatic aspect out of it, but I know that a lot of people use
Okay.
Prezi to be able to organize their class presentations and stuff. See this? Now, look at this.
Do trees. We're gonna do mind map a lot.
All right, let's talk about the pedagogy of this, or the affordances of this. And really, I want to throw the question out to you. What do you see as advantages or differences, let's start off with differences, between using mind maps and sort of a traditional way to think, to organize? Are mind maps a traditional way to organize, and they're just a little bit easier now that they're on computers? What are your thoughts?
Well, for people who aren't linear thinkers, it's a way to just get your ideas on visually out there. And so you can think about what are the
Out of my head.
Yeah. And so actually this activity where I had to think of categories, and like that was really hard for me. I'm not alone. So just being able to put it all out there and then starting to see what you have and create categories and things like that. I really like easy with this kind of thing.
Awesome. There's I read something on Mind Maps where people talk about it as it's like a different language altogether. You've got to learn the mind map language of, and it's not just like ideas and nodes and connectors, but just the way to think in a nonlinear fashion. We've been taught, introductory paragraph, paragraph 2, the 5-paragraph essay has been drilled into us for so long, follow this very linear path. And to start thinking in nonlinear fashion, it's a little bit different and odd for us. Other thoughts? Nick?
I'd say one of the things that I really love about it, I'm sure you all are better than me, but I forget things, and I forget about links, and I forget about great examples that I might have had 10 years ago or something like that. What I like is that it keeps all this in almost, it's another brain. I can see why they named that the brain, because it keeps it.
Synapses, right? Those lines of synapses.
Yeah, and it retains all those connections. And then the second thing I'll say is why I think it's different from what I used to do on the board. It's because I can have actual products here. I can have an actual web page, an actual figure, an actual picture that I can pull off and put in a Prezi presentation or a PowerPoint. Whereas before, I did some of this, but it was all words and text. But with the advancements in the software, you can build all kinds of stuff into these maps.
Does anyone use it to actually put like videos? Has anyone used Prezi as a mind mapping, for example? Where you actually put videos in there and then you can just get in and show a video or choose not. And this was Kirsten's question was, there is a paths feature in Prezi, for example, where you can just advance to the next thing and then to the next thing, and oftentimes there's like some barrel roll through it and everybody gets sick. But you can do it without just using the zoom, and a nice slow zoom that doesn't do this is better, in my opinion, as I'm getting older and the vertigo is starting to happen. But does anyone do like, so you talked about the multimedia figures, do you just zoom in on that figure in Scapple live in class?
Scapple, Scapple I zoom in and I embed videos, but, and this is a question for other folks, particularly the brain, there are some, I've seen in these other mind mapping softwares where they'll have these quick steps, or what do you call them, where you can say, find all the places that have assessment, and it'll reorganize it around assessment as the center of your mind map. Or you can say, find find my hands-on activities, and it'll in real time reorganize everything. That's the center, but everything's still connected, and still, the integrity of everything is
So
still
the lines
retained.
just all move around.
It's just all moved there.
Yeah, I mean, you have to, in the brain, you have to make those connections when you add your thing, and you can tag it, or you can connect it with the little line. But yeah, it's super searchable, so if you want a particular category, you can, whatever categories you make, yeah, it's a search function.
So that's a nice feature.
Is there a search function in Scapple when you make these?
There is, but it's the search function it's sort of like Windows search function. So you type in the word assessment, and then it highlights all the places you have assessment.
Okay.
Whereas these other ones I've seen actually move your mind map around to where it makes that the focal point. So.
George.
So I think what occurred to me is that we're kind of talking about slightly two different things when we talk about these mind maps.
At least.
But I think in particular, using these mind maps as a planning tool for your teaching, for your paper, for your poster, for anything. And for these, you probably want the rich software where you can insert the videos and colors and labels. On the other end is what we, some of our faculty, like our leads, have been using in our nursing active learning classrooms, which we refer to as concept maps. And for these, students get a set of concepts, and they have to connect them, and they have to label them. And it's really a very quick group assessment activity. And for these, the opposite is true. You don't want the colors, you don't want the rich things. You want them to focus on figuring out how concepts work together. And that's why CMAP is what we use, because we don't want them, actually we have an activity which is creating an infographic, a different thing. But we discovered that students tend to spend an enormous amount of time deciding if the label on top should be pink or blue or yellow, and you want to eliminate that. So it might be useful to you as a planning tool if you have your filing system, yellow is future ideas and green is what I used in the class, but during class, it's going to double the time because they're going to go online and look for nice pictures and then decide if that font is better than this font. So it's like, no, just boxes, concepts, connectors, and labels. That's what we want, because you can do that in 15 minutes.
Keep it simple.
So I think there are two different, when you're looking at software, you probably prefer something like Brain, which I don't know, because it's rich and allows you lots of things. For class activity, simpler might actually be better.